Hello Guy Bicycles, Shop Talk Tuesday. And here we have it. I mean, we have a bike to feature, talk about what's in my stand today. In addition to, I got something in a box that got shipped to me where I'm going to be going over, let's say, features of it. We'll talk about that. It's a little hidden surprise, Jim. And then we'll talk about the latest topic of, you may have seen it. Have you seen it? Watch it. It's a 15-minute video of Pon Holdings, Pon Bike, which is a Dutch company, and they carry very many companies underneath their umbrella of 50 bicycle-related companies, in addition to a lot of automotive vehicles, and they have their fingers in all sorts of places. But we'll talk about that in a minute. For right now, we're going to jump into this. Well, I wouldn't say one of a kind. It's a four of a kind. So we'll take a look at that and where did this thing come from, who's riding it, and then we'll proceed to what I need to do to this and what it's in for. So in any case, I forgot to grab my laptop, so I'll need to grab that here, and so I can actually see the chat, because the screen is a little too small for me to see it there, but lo and behold, I have this guy. So where did this bike come from? It's not a formal repair. It is actually a buddy of mine, and you may know him. You may have seen him on my channel. His name is John Bradley. He has been within the cycling industry for longer than dirt. He's been in the industry for over 50 years. He started in the 70s. Lo and behold, he's retired now, and he's had me work on his Focus bike. If you've seen the video of that, give me a thumbs up or a like, because yeah, it was a pretty cool bike to feature, and also he rides a lot. And when I went to throw a new chain on it with his old cassette definitely did not hold up to the new chain. It was worn out. We'll go over the parts on this one. So there lies the conversation of this bike and the conversation of a person in the industry, mechanic, salesperson, whoever. What we do to our bikes is not what we suggest that everybody else does. It's kind of like one of those things like, do what I say, don't do what I do. It's always been the case like that. Just pardon me, I'm just setting this thing up so I can actually see your comments. If it wants to come back to live. But yes, it's one of those situations where it's kind of funny. I thought it was just a me thing because I work on bikes all the time, have been for the last 35 years. And my computer just died on me. Now I got to plug it in. Great. In any case, I thought it was just a me thing because I work on bikes for so many long years, and one of those situations where, yeah, you know, it's kind of like a chef going home, right? And cooking a big dinner for their family. I mean, it's just like, I've been cooking all day. The last thing I want to do is, for me, bikes, I've been working on bikes all day. All I want to do is ride my damn bike. So, and there alludes what a lot of us in the cycle industry, there we go. All right. Sorry for the delay there. Randy, thank you for chiming in. Yeah, let's do this. It's Shop Talk Tuesday. If you're just jumping in, we're going to talk about this bike here. I'm talking about how mechanics are just, I wouldn't say all, no, but there's a percentage of us that just ride and we just put it wet. I mean, it's just, you know, it is that horrible scenario. And then, unfortunately, there's some elitist mechanics out there, I'm not going to say any, that will give you the snark when you bring in your bike dirty or not as even dirty as theirs. I mean, so in any case, I don't know. And then you throw in having a family, you throw in having a life and a wife and everything else. Those bikes get really kind of just chucked. And not to say a lot of customers do the same thing. I have no problem with somebody bringing a bike dirty, because that makes me feel like that's going to have a great end result effect, like, oh, wow, versus something's really immaculate and like, man, I got to really, really up my game to have this customer see. But in any case, that's just kind of a me thing and a funny thing. But CYKEL, CYKEL, kind of a weird name. What is this? So, number one, if I start shivering, it's cold. It is a balming 49 degrees Fahrenheit in my garage. It started off 40. I have the heater going, so hopefully that's not interfering with any of the sound. And in addition to, I have a little head cold, so if I still cough or get a little monotone or nasally, I do apologize. I've been trying to clear my sinuses out all morning and been drinking some extra hot cup of joe coffee with a lot of creamer, of course. That's my vibe. I just don't like the bitter, to help me kind of keep me more fluid. But I'm excited. I didn't want to cancel today because it's not the greatest feeling. I wanted to talk about this bike because this bike is not going to stay here. This bike is going to basically go on to either be ridden here or it's going to go up to where John Bradley decided he wanted to go move up to Minnesota. Not really wanted to, but in any case, life changes and you got to do moves. So he's going to be up there. He still has a home close here, so we'll be seeing him periodically. So that's a win-win for all of us. But he rolled this in after I worked on his Focus. He rolls this in. He was like, "Oh, I'm going out of town, do my partial move thing. Do your magic." I'm like, "Do what you did on my other bike." Okay, what I'm going to do on this bike is the guy's magic, which is detailing the frame, putting ceramic coating on it, basically pull it apart to overhaul state, replace anything that needs to replace. And we got a laundry list of things to replace. This has been ridden, which is great. I mean, bikes are supposed to be ridden. It's been ridden. And that's good. He had some upgrades, which caused some problems here with the cables, and I'll talk about that in a second. But this kind of gives you a lowdown of what a mechanic is seeing or your own bike when you're like, oh, I really need to dive into it. He did openly admit, like, I'm kind of embarrassed. I'm like, don't be. You ride your bike. That's awesome. And makes me feel better because I do the same darn thing on mine. I just ride it and put it away until something breaks. Then I'll address it or an upgrade. So there's three things I think a bike mechanic's bike will be like, or 3 times it gets tuned up, really tuned, like this level of tune. Number one, when it's new. Simple. New, comes out of the box. We give it the fine-tuned treatment. Everything we want to do, upgrades, change saddle, all that stuff. Or mechanic, we're just happier. A kid in a candy store going, diving into it. That's when it's at probably at its pinnacle peak of performance. Because from there on out, we were just going to ride the hell out of it. And until we get another option is, an upgrade. Oh, a new fancy bar, shock seat post, or whatever, And then we're like, then that puts the bike on the stand for us. And then we realize, oh, yeah, I better clean that drivetrain. It's, it's like we force ourselves to do the tune-up when we do an upgrade. It could be just a simple bar upgrade or a stem upgrade. But once we get the bike on the stand, we're like, well, we're here. We're in it now, so let's roll. And then lastly is when we're done with the bike and we're going to put it for sale. That's when we do the super tune. Replace any parts that we replaced, go through it, clean it. Sometimes, not all mechanics do this, but most will do the whole to their best of the abilities of a mechanic that shows the shine. So when you find a bike that's used from a mechanic, let's not say like just a regular, I work on my own bikes mechanic, they're fine too. But if you're in the game and you've been a production mechanic, you roll through stuff, your stuff's going to be a little more meticulous, immaculate, all those things, right? I have actually sold a few mechanics bikes I got from them. They just need a little bit more. But then again, I have like a 20 years up on them on experience. So there's some things that they may not even notice. I did, in any case. Not to dock their abilities whatsoever. They're fine mechanics. They do great. But so you can't just replace age sometimes. It just comes down to that. All right, Kevin. Welcome to the house. Well, welcome to the garage, Kevin. Thank you for chiming in. Oh, you're welcome he's just saying, thank you for doing this awesome channel. A lot of knowledge, more information we can share, better in the bicycling that I'll love. Like, you know, there's so many different layers of the cycling. Just, you say bicycle and it's a monster onion. I mean, it's just layer upon layer upon layer, different levels, different colors of onions. You just, you know, and sometimes it makes you cry. Sometimes, you know, they're spicy. I don't know. You say all those analogies. Hunter, welcome to the garage. Thanks for jumping in. Hey, so back to the cycle with the weird cycle. And I Googled it, and it's like a shop with the same spelling. Excuse me. I do have to apologize. I do have a little bit of cold, a little under the weather, so you might hear me get all stuffed up. But anyway, it is not the same. Apparently, this individual that built this frame, there was only 4 made. An individual that, we'll go into this detail when I have John here. I will make a video of his bike featured, go through it, and he'll tell me the whole story. But what he's told me briefly is there's only 4 made. The guy that made them worked at Schwinn when he worked at Schwinn in the late 90s, early 2000s, before that acquisition company failed. It wasn't from the original Schwinn. I think it was like the second or third company that Schwinn's name was under. And that's when they were bolstering the brand, and their offices were in Boulder, Colorado. Sorry for the tickle in the throat. So when they disbanded, this guy, he made some frames and did some other stuff. This is one of 4. And is for John, his size, his height, he's like 6'1", 6'2", all torso. It's funny because his leg length, I get on his bike and his leg length is like, man, I don't have a full reach on my pedal strokes. Like, man, the guy is all torso. In any case, it is a steel classic frame build with a steel classic fork. With it's crossed, because this is before the word gravel became a word in the cycling industry. It was a cross bike, a cycle cross bike. Cycle cross bikes, they've been around forever, over a good 100 years. If you can read up on cyclocross, but the cyclocross is sport. I'm just gonna give it like a 2-second elevator pitch on it. Road racing in the turn of the century got cold into the season. People were losing fingers and toes. Race event organizers at the time decided, like, we need to get them off their bike and do a little run section. Lo and behold, fast forward 100 years later, we actually have a timed event, which is a combination of mud, get off your bike, obstacle event. It's fun to watch. It's usually based on about 30 minutes. It is become its own professional realm of cycling for gravel racing. We got gravel racing pros, but it's usually a mixed hodgepodge of roadies and mouties mixing at the end of the season. And the worse the weather, the better it is. So these particular bikes were being made in like bike lines over the last 3 decades that I know of. I've had 2 or 3 different ones from Trek, Fuji, and now Pop Rod, Full Milan. And they were a great versatile, not hybrid, but dirt, jump off the road bike. So that's where lies the popularity of it. Is it a Hunter? That's a very funny one. If this is the only cycle, does that make it the unicycle? That's a quad 4 quad cycle. Good one. Beautiful color, very thick. I can definitely tell it has a thick paint job, so when I do the detailing, it's going to be a lot of material to work with to make it. He does have some boo-boo areas. I'm going to probably put some little boo-boo stickers on. You know, like the car wraps, well, they make wraps for fingernails, and I noticed my wife, she was doing wraps for her nails. I'm like, that's a perfect match color to the bike I'm working on. It fits that. Super cheap, too. So get that, get the hardening nail polish, put it on there, boom. There you go. You got yourself a boo-boo sticker for picking up some, covering all those little blemishes and so forth that make the bike a bike, right? So unique still. It's a Reynolds 853. I mean, the higher the number, the better it is, right? I think that's how it works with the Reynolds. Anyway, it's all chromoly, high-end chromoly. If you've ever ridden a steel bike, its equivalent is titanium. It has a nice, lively feel to it. Not light, not usually light. That's where titanium comes out of play. But titanium used market has really dropped, so this is a good opportunity for anybody that's ever ventured the thought of getting a titanium bike. This is probably a good time to do it. So we have the traditional canny brake bosses on this, but it has your standard 38 shell, road sizing in the back. If it does get crumpled, those tools that I featured in the last live, you can use to kind of manipulate and fix and that kind of thing. So there lies. It was pretty dirty, ridden pretty hard. There's a little bit of rust in the bottom bracket shell here that I'll try to clean up. But let's go over the parts on this guy. So first, the unique one that you won't see a lot of is the canty brakes on cyclocross, because they've gone to disc. Where before they stopped these and went to disc, they went with a super fancy canty, which is this guy here. This is from Avid. It's called a Shorty Ultimate. And you can see the nice little red anodizing on there. This is where you get that leveraging to, you know, more flared out leverage than you would on, and you could, they did make little V-brake styles, but these were like the traditionalist looking cyclocross brakes before they went to disc. Also, cyclocross bikes were being made with these way past they had discs, because the race commission would not allow disc brakes yet, which I'm miffed, because I bought the last year of the canny pop rod, and the next year they made a disc version. Any case, I'm stuck with cannies. They work just fine. But they're a little bit trickier to find parts and bits for. But this has a standard brake pad, so it has a replaceable one. So we're going to do some replacing brake pads. Also, these don't come with a little pin that fits into the actual brake boss here. So what these are designed, they use a compression of the spring to hold give that you know, the flex or the actual pull of both sides. So you tighten it down, then you take a, I think it's a 13 millimeter cone, and then you adjust it out. So kind of clever. Then you tighten the bolt down and it kind of wedges it in. The only downfall is you get lube or anything in there, they can get gummed up like any of the canny brakes. And sorry, knowing cyclocross, these are supposed to design to get through a lot of gunk. I mean, caked up snow, ice, mud, you know it. That's what these are designed for. So wanted to feature those. Those are unique. You don't see a lot of these. I may just make a little video just cleaning these guys up separately, and also how to install them and adjust them, because honestly, if you haven't done one, you will be doing it for an hour or two. You'll get really, really cozy with it, because it's going to be a lot of extra learning, for sure, for sure. All right. Yeah, Hunter, love the canny brakes, especially the cool ones like this. Those are really nice. Randy, yeah, steel is real. I've ridden my first steel frame back in the 90s. It was a Monggose, when Monggose still owned Monggose, or maybe it was the first investment company that was building up the brand. But anyway, they used Ritchie tubing, and that Ritchie tubing was amazing. It was the Ibach Pro ST model, that's what it was. And I've been now looking for one ever since I sold it. The tubing was really thin though. The tubing itself dented pretty easily, especially mountain biking. You did one bink like that, and it had a couple also little dings on there. But in any case, oh, let's see here. All right, do you have a feeling about DIY bike wraps? Wraps for older bikes. And is that even done? Oh, are you talking about the old wraps was the cloth wrap? Star Blazer, are you thinking like the old school cloth wrap? I mean, some people are into that. And I see there's a newer version of that cloth wrap for bar wrap where you actually can take it off and wash it in a wash machine and put it back on. I don't think you get as much padding, so you're gonna have to rely on the padding on your gloves to do that. But they still sell the tape. It's just, I like the gel back tape myself personally. It gives you a little extra comfort. Yeah, The Cannies are not new, obviously. Cannies are around before V-brakes. That's a little history on there. Hunter mentioned he has a Trek 8000, which had the DX, which is it's still to carry the DX line, or at least the Dura line through Shimano. And the DX was like the third level down. Actually, I think it was the second level down for the longest, because XT was the top, and then all of a sudden they came out with XTR. So, but I'll have to go search the banks on that. Yeah. Oh, car wraps. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was talking about stickers and got lost track. Foggy head from the cold. Sorry about that. You could use wraps. I mean, pretty much the paint on a bike and the materials are very similar to the car industry, paints and materials. So I use a lot of the lithium and the Adams polishes, which are strictly car related, but the paints are very similar and they do really well. So when you're looking at a bike, company trying to make polishes and so forth, well, the car industry like lithium and Adams have been doing it for decades, so you might as well go to where the best is. So when you look at car wraps, you can probably go down and get your little sheet of car wrap and just kind of fix up a section if it's really, really nasty. I use the fingernail ones because they come in different sizes, and I got a pack for like $5 and you got a rainbow of colors. And then just kind of, it's usually where you have your wear marks, underneath, just to clean it up. And with steel frames, you want to cover, right? I mean, you don't want it to be exposed in those areas. So if I put a little boo-boo sticker on there, make a nice even though you can still see it, but just have a nice clear coat on it, either a nail polish clear coat or a clear coat, doesn't matter. Whatever is going to hold up the longest for you or treated. And then you put that ceramic coating on top of it, which is another additional layer, which in those exposed areas, you got a little ding here, that'll actually protect that frame from rusting. Basically, you're just trying to cover that steel. Here in Colorado, we're pretty arid, so it's really dry, so rust is really not a huge thing for us, but working in the Midwest look at Ann Arbor, Michigan for 2 years, the humidity there and the salt in the roads, the steel bikes became rust buckets, and you just look at them and you start rusting. It's insane. Never experienced that before. So there's a lot of preventiveness to a steel bike or parts in those particular areas that we really don't do in the Colorado setting because it's more of an arid climate. Yeah, there's so many different kind of touch-up paints you can use. I would, direct people to the automotive touch-up paints because they're a little more of a hardening. They're designed to be out in the UV protection is another thing too, especially here. So yeah, it's it all depends. But if Hunter, if you're closer to like the ocean, then you can get a lot of that spray within the atmosphere, which just eats everything up. So, in any case, the protection of the bike. There's also a spray called I haven't used it in years. It's called the Frame Saver. It's this stuff. I think they still sell it. This is nasty stuff though. You got to take the frame completely like you're getting painted. Then you can spray the inside of this. And then you got to let it really cure. But that helps the prevention from the inside out of the frame. But it is nasty. And I did it on one bike of mine, and the seat post was apparently still a little wet. And it seized my seat post in there. So that was kind of a tricky bit to get that out for sure. Yeah, so yeah, if you're 70 miles from the coastal line, Hunter, yeah, you're not. That's you're over the ridge, and then you're in the more of the deserted area, arid area for sure. So that's the brakes on this guy, which are unique and specific to the CYKEL Cross Bike. But what he has is pretty much a 105, 105 throughout. So he has, well, actually, the 105 longer cage, and you can tell. It's been used, but it's really caked up. I haven't cleaned this yet, so I need to pull the jockey pulleys out and just give you an idea. And that's why I'm wearing gloves. This is his cassette. You can see how kind of gunky it is. And I knew the cassette was already worn, because when you start looking at some of these teeth and you're seeing like a valley with less peak in there, if you can see that. I know on his other bike, I put a new chain on there and it skipped in those gears right off the bat. I'm like, I'm doing it. Let's just get a new cassette and chain and get a wax chain on there. So he's going with the Connex chain. The Connex chains are made out of Germany. If you don't know about them, you don't see them on OEM bikes at all. It's an aftermarket high-end upgrade chain. German steel, higher tolerances, all the blah, 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 blah to go with it. But they're nice. And what's really cool about them is they have a quick link or connect, I think they call them. But they're reusable, number one. So the Shimano and SRAMs are technically, not reusable according to them, but people always do. But the Connex chains have that reusable link, and you don't need a tool. So you can actually bend it in a way that it pops it open and you can connect it. Therefore, if you're waxing a chain or switching chains out and all that, you don't need the extra tools. It's a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier for a mechanic, a lot easier if you can do the wax process, all that good stuff. So I'm replacing it just regular generic, general brake pads. So, and the cassette, he went to, I think it was REI. That's where he found locally to get a cassette for me to put on there. And then let's see where, it's all shiny and new. Yeah, it's your typical nickel-plated cassette. So that's all good and fine and dandy. He's crazy because he wants to go with white bar tape. So with white bar tape, talk about a weird, this is a sidebar and white bar tape, or high viv color bar tape. I was cleaning a bike and decided to use a little of the lithium all-surface cleaner, which is this guy here. You can find it in my Amazon store below. Spraying this on there and taking a rag and kind of massaging and kind of soaking it and pulling the dirt out. This cleaned it really, not perfect, but it cleaned it really well. What I've done before is I've used New Finish, which is that car finish, and I put it on there, and I did the same kind of thing, but it kind of leaves more of a ash white to the coloring. That actually cleaned it really well. So if you have a lighter bar tape, you want to clean it because it's going to get dirty. It's just going to get dirty and nasty looking pretty quick. Using that spray, and that is all surfaces, so you can clean it in all sorts of things. You're supposed to use something like that too once you polish it and all that to contaminate the paint before you actually put the ceramic coating. So there's a little sidebar on there for you too. Hunter, that's right, shark teeth. We got those going on the cassette. His chain rings seem to be okay on his crankset. Dirty, of course, but you'll have a ridge. It doesn't wallow out, and you have the little edges to the tops to them, like a high top or flat top if you're a BMX racer back in the day. And then this is, I believe, the one that is part of that Ultegra 11-speed recall. He's had them checked, but I will be taking this off, and will not. I'm not a certified Shimano, but I know what I'm looking for. So if I did find something that was wrong, I'd take it to a certified Shimano dealer and go, hey, recall these for me, please. The Ultegras, they haven't had too much of an issue with. It's mostly been on the Dura-Ace ones. But in any case, I'll be cleaning these up, taking them all apart and cleaning that, as well as the jockey pulleys. Other parts, talked about the chain. That's pretty... It's pretty nice to be able, we're going to re-wax that. He may have me wax a couple of them or take a couple of wax ones off of that. And last but not least, where to go? On parts, I noticed when I pulled the crank that I just showed you, the cup on one side, on the drive side was a little grindy. And these things are like $30. So it's kind of like, let's just do it. So I went down to the local bike store with my buddies, and they hooked me up with the new cartridge bonder bracket. So he is getting a lot of new bits. So the drivetrain portion, bonder bracket, chain, and cassette is going to be new. It's going to feel a lot better and smoother. The other Quicket Ink that we came across, or that I came across on this bike, was if you notice, these bars are more of a lift onto them. This is the Ritchie version. There's also a Specialized version. That bring them up a little more aggressive, and there's also Redshift, which is their nicer brand, very expensive, but they're even a little more higher up with a little BMX crossbar style. Well, what he did is when you do any changes to the stem and handlebars and bring them up, you shorten the reach of the cable. So when you turn this on, you couldn't turn this very far, and you can see the cables are pulling the bar tape down. So obviously it's a good thing I'm doing this, because that will prevent the ability to turn, and that could cause you to crash. So you want to make sure you have enough flow to the housing when you're turning your bars all the way back and forth, just to make sure you don't have any binding. In some cases, that bind might bunch up against the brake housing and pull it, which will cause your front brake to lock up as you're turning. So I've seen it all in that aspect. So you always want a good, a decent flow, that when you push these back and forth, when they're in place, you have enough housing to prevent any kind of binding. So when you're lacing your housing, putting new housing on there, and new cables, you might as well do it all at the same time when you have it this stripped. That just gives you better performance. Brake, not so much. There's more or less tolerances needed for brakes, because it's more fluid. For shifting, it's more indexed, so it's really very important. And these cables and the housing bits, wherever they may be, where they may lie, you get, contaminants that come in, they draw in from the cable. A lot of the newer ones, the housing I have is already pre-ejected with a grease. That kind of helps water barrier, contaminant barrier. But eventually that cable will start cutting. If you get any kind of any fine sand or water contaminants in there, that cable will start acting like a saw on the inside and start compromising that nylon sleeve inside. And what happens there, it prevents that shifting to be completely smooth and direct to index. So a lot of times on the rear, just like the little section on the rear derailleur, because the rear derailleur hangs out there, it's all hanging out, a lot of contaminants coming up and gets in there, draws up inside the housing. Well, sometimes you just need to replace the housing. You don't even need to replace the cable. Just take the cable out, cut a new piece of housing, put it in there. Take a piece of steel wool, clean the surface of the cable. Hopefully this is a stainless steel cable. There's different cables out there. That's another sideboard. They have a galvanized, which is steel, but it's galvanized so it doesn't rust. Then they have the stainless steel. The stainless steel is more expensive, but it's worth the extra couple bucks, because it's usually a little better pressed, a little bit smoother. Then there's also skinnier DIs on those, so they can really get technical on cables. So once you clean that housing, you put a new piece of housing on there, clean that cable and put it back together. I've had bikes, I've been fighting with the derailleur to get it to shift. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna replace that little piece, and I replace the piece and boom, it's dead on. That's the ones that are lower or below the, the head tube area, those are everything that gets contaminated. Anything above maybe lasts a bit longer. But if you're going to tear it apart here and get the cable or the tape off, you might as well replace all this, because once you get that tape on there, sometimes that tape you can't re-pull and reuse. So save you an extra 30, 40 bucks on bar tape, that kind of thing. All right. Yeah, Randy, the chain rings seem to be fine. On this, so once I do a ride, and again, chain rings and cassettes, that one's pretty visible, but you really don't know until you get a new chain on there and put some weight in it, and then you'll feel it pop. So, and that's under like a little bit of a load going up a little bit of a hill. So if you have a new chain, when you throw a new chain on there, obviously you want to double check all your derailleurs, at least it's shifting and all that, right? But once you're on that test ride, that's where it actually rubber hits the road, right? It's like you put more tension and torque on it. And I've had, chain rings that look almost fine, but once you put that torque on a little bit of the hill, put a little bit of weight into it, and it's like shift, and you're like, oh, son of a biscuit. So you're like, okay, got to get a new chain ring on that. But I think these were good, but we'll see, obviously, on that. Yeah, Hunter White bar tape is brave. I'll let him know. Let's see. Yeah, once I get done with this, it's going to feel like a brand new bike, and with the wax chain on there and some other things that probably feel better. This was a frame build for him, so it didn't come with any of these parts. He had these parts and installed them. So, and this might even be a 1-inch. I'll have to check, see if there's a conversion piece on there. Also with the, you can't put a suspension on this because the cable stop for the brake is right underneath here. All depends how that all works. Apparently there's a new shock that came out for gravel. It's like a reverse cylinder. I've seen one in the shop about a couple years ago, but it really is kind of funny because this is late 90s Manitou road fork. So they've been making suspension for road. And this was even threaded. Inch and eighth though, at least. So maybe one of these lucky bikes will get that bad boy on there. But the elastomers are probably hardened for the last 20 years. So I don't know. We'll see. Or find me some speed springs and put them in there, and they'll be all good and go. All right, other bits. Nothing really. I mean, really about it. He has some pretty cool wheels. He's going to have me refresh the sealant in there. That's another kind of reminder that every 3 to 4 months, if you have tubeless, you need to refresh your sealant. So I'll be popping these open and throwing some new sealant in there and closing them up, and hopefully I won't have a hot mess on my hands. But you know, it's kind of like you could get lucky and then you don't get lucky. So, and the unlucky part of tubeless is the tape gets compromised, it leaks inside, or the valve goes bad, or the tire doesn't seat. You got a lot of woes to tubeless sometimes. You know, the benefit of it, obviously, it gives you a better flat prevention, lower pressure, more supple ride if you want. I'm not an advocate for road, but some people like it on road bikes. I see it on gravel okay, and mountain bikes specifically is usually the better play for that. But if you do get a failure on the ride, it's a colossal hot mess. You better hope you still have an extra tube. If you get a slice on there, you're gonna have to boot it. I mean, or you may be just calling somebody to pick you up. But for mountain biking, you better have your ducks in a row and all your supplies. But if you're 10, 15 miles into the thick of it, it's gonna be a really long ass walk if you can't fix it or whatever. And back in the days, I mean, I've seen pictures of people just shoving like twigs and grass and whatever in their tire bed just to roll so they can get back to, civilization. So, in any case, yeah. You know, some people are on the tubeless. I understand it, lower pressure, but you still put your rim at risk for impact. I don't know. It's a double side thing. It works either or. In any case, that's really about what we're going to be doing on this bike. Yeah, it's going to be, I'm at about, probably just taking it apart about an hour into it, hour and a half. To have cleaned the frame. The frame was dirty. It's now ready for being the 3-stage polish that I do, or 2-stage polish. Well, it's 3-stage. You do the scratch and swirl, the compound, and the polish from Adams. You can see that in my Amazon store below. But then after that, I go into the lithium products, where the cleaning of the frame, getting the polishes off, then you actually put the ceramic coating. That ceramic coating, I kind of like the ceramic coating from lithium a little more than others. After you do it's stackable, so you can let it dry, and you do another layer, let it dry, but it doesn't leave a haze on there that you can't buff off. I've noticed with the Adams, it's nice stuff, but you can get a flash on there that won't buff off, and this just seems be a little more user-friendly per se. And the purposes for it, from my perspective, is it's UV protection, so it's going to save that paint a little bit longer, and also has a higher bead concentration, so when water and mud get on there, it sheds off and comes off the bike a lot easier. I'm even thinking about putting on my snowblower to see what it does, to push all the gunk out, and snow shovels when it gets to that time of year. We're getting close. We're getting close that time of year. All right. So, I don't like using the syringe. Randy, that's a great question. Do you use a syringe to inject the tubeless? I don't. I like to pop the bead and pour it in. I usually use sealants that have more fibers in them, and then just liquid. And that actually helps seal or fill in those holes. Like the Silka sealant has like carbon fiber pieces in it. You can, but for me, it usually gums up the valve so bad that, I know they have better valves out and so forth, but it's kind of like, and those newer valves are not out yet, so it's almost a situation, if you do the injection, you end up going to need a new valve anyway. and then, I don't know, it's a rabbit hole. It's just but if you start off completely fresh, you set it up yourself, and you use those valves that have more of a port that goes inside. I think the Muck-Off has some, or there's some knockoff brands, knockoff. That actually pushes that liquid further away so it doesn't gum up. Those probably work a little bit better, but there's so many different things now that make it easier. So whatever makes it easier for you to do it, but just remember you need to refresh it because it does dry out inside, and then you don't have that protective properties after about 3 or 4 months of riding. Any case, doesn't matter what size, road, mountain, whatever. And then all of a sudden you'll get this little booger in there. It looks like a ball that starts bouncing around, especially in the mountain bikes. They'll start accumulating this, leftover, and then you'll get like a ball like this. It's bouncing around inside your wheel. So that's some fun stuff, right? All right, so that's pretty much the gist of the bike. I mean, it's Reynolds tubing, cantilevers, traditionalists. It's going to turn out beautiful. Next couple of weeks, watch out for a video of me having an interview with John, talking about the bike, where it was made, what's he ride, how does he ride it, that kind of thing. It'll be a great Q&A kind of thing. So throw some questions in the comments below or in the chat, and I will relay that to Mr. Bradley himself. And how's it ride? How you like steel or whatever? I'll do the generals, of course, for the general interview of the bike and him. But if it's something unique, hey, let me know. I don't know if the guy's making any more frames, so I don't think it's like one of those. But there is companies out there making cool frames that he has a couple eyes on. He'll bring those up. I'll ask him that. It's like, well, if you're going to look for one today, are you looking for a Ritchie? Or are you looking for another brand? Who's making a brand that he has an eye for? Which might be kind of cool to know and sing about, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's going to be the fun. Ultrasonic cleaning, parts, put new off, detailing the frame, ceramic coating. I do like ceramic, so today I'll probably get the frame and ceramic coated. I like to let it cure overnight, make sure it's really good before I start putting all the parts back on. But I'll get all the other parts, so it's kind of like a 2-day process for me when I do bikes like this. And not to say I'm doing it all day long. It's like, I'll do it for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and it sits, and I go do all the other stuff that I do. Has running a bike shop, promoting, editing videos, all the stuff, all the things, and then we go. You made your own injector? All right. Yeah, I mean, I had one that's from Stan's. It got gunky pretty damn quick. It's almost one of those things you use it for a few times and you got to chuck it to get a new. I don't know. I just use the protein powder cups that like these guys, and I use a little scale. Then I can weigh how much is in fluid ounces, and then that's how, because obviously you have different fluid ounce measurements for mountain road and gravel depending on the wheel size, and that's been my kind of little go-to. It's like, oh, I'll just do this. And this is wax, so yeah, this is my backup wax. Any case, all right, let's pop into the next phase. Let's check out. So I've gotten a little more popular. Thank you again. It takes you to make this channel, so thank you for being a part of the community of I Know a Guy Bicycle hanging out at the garage. I can't say anything more. I'll go into a little more detail. We had a conversation last week about bike shops and how we're evolving and changing and all that. Anything helps us at this particular juncture of the industry recorrecting or rebranding, or basically starting over, trying to figure what we're doing. But I had a company which is the same company as the ultrasonic cleaner that I had originally. This is a Cruz works, but I had a Beaver, and Beaver's huge. They make millions of different things, and the ultrasonic cleaner I got, it worked for let's put it in perspective. I cranked on it for 2.5 years, almost daily, and it didn't completely die. It just, the switch went faulty, and I was able to find a switch for it, which I have a video for, which was off of a switch for something else completely, but it worked. A buddy of mine, he's in the machining world, and he gave me the link to the one that fixed his. He has two of them, a smaller one like and he has a bigger tank one, which is two different switches, heads up on that. But the smaller switch, I was able to solder it in there, and it works fine. And at the time, I panicked and I bought this one. This one's been going great too. It's probably made in the same factory, quite honestly, but in any case, I gave the other one to my buddy here locally. He's been cranking out motorcycle parts and so forth, so he's doing that. So the company reaches out. I didn't vet this. They reached out and was like, hey, you want to review something from us? I'm like, and they gave me a laundry list of stuff which had nothing to do with cycling. I'm like, okay, obviously this is a foreign country. You're not really in tune to exactly what I do. And I was like, hey, how about cycling specific stuff? What do you got there? And they're like, well, we got a repair stand or a receiver hitch car rack. And I'm like, well, I don't have a receiver hitch right now. So I'm like, okay, that's out. Let's do the bike rack, repair stand. That's what it is. So we're going to open this bad boy up. I'll do a feature video for them, which I promised for sending it to me for free. This is not the paid promotion or anything. I mean, they gave it to me for free, so I guess I got to disclose that just to check out. But other than that, there's no contract restriction. You know, I'm not giving them any extra light of day on this, but this is where it came from. And then, you know, in these live videos, I want to feature a tool, you know, new, used, or otherwise. So it comes with a little tray. I guess this is not too bad. I like the trays from Feedback. They have a nice big wide base to them. You can pack a lot of extra grit and tools and junk on there. So not too bad, you know, so got that. I should have thought this through. I don't know if there was going to be some assembly required. A lot of these you just pull out of the box and you're good to go. Looks like a little wire hanger thing. Looks like it might be a base plate bit in here, so we'll take a look at that. There's directions, but you know, whoever reads directions, right? Maybe I should take a peek at directions. Okay, that wire piece is really just for the bracket to hold the plate on there. And it looks like I do need to put the headpiece on together, but just kind of a show you. So yeah, apparently these are not too expensive. They're under $100. So that's where I wanted to kind of like, you know, cycling doesn't have to be expensive. And last week I think I talked about toolkits, and there's like Bike Hand or something like that. Had a toolkit, and it has about 90% of the stuff, and then Jensen's USA is the same thing. It's called the Founders toolkit. It's like a little kind of a tackle box thing, and it has 90% of the stuff you'll probably need to use if you're going to use it or need to use it at all. And there lies the suggestion is like you get something like that, and I think they were on sale for like $100 or $150 for other places, and that gives you a good baseline of tools and cone wrenches, specifically for bikes. And then if you need something other than that's in the kit, you can buy one-offs, or if you wear out or use a certain tool in that kit more often than not, then you can go to the Parks or the Feedback Sports or Pedro's or whatever brand you want to go with. To get the nicer, high quality, snap-on style, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, this is what we got. It has one of those hanger thingies. I'll have to feature that in the video, but this is just a unveiling. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to have time. Kind of hold your bike in place so it doesn't do this. But, you know, usually if you tilt it down with gravity, you're okay. Or we used to use bungee cords to wrap around the frame to hold the front wheel, that kind of thing. So this looks like it's a slider. You gonna go down? You go the other way. All right. All right, so, well, it looks pretty solid tubing. You know, nothing different than like feedback or park tool, quite honestly. Got to fit down, slide down. Oh, cardboard's in the way. Gotta be smarter than the cardboard, Justin. All right, where's the seam on this guy? Do a little surgical cut. It slides down. Oh, notches, that's great. Quick release needs to be tightened up, but that's what we got. All right. So, I'm a taller dude. I'm like close to 6 foot, now 5'11". Okay, it stops at this height, which is nice. It tells you so it doesn't come all the way out. That's pretty good height to it. Looks like it was packed pretty good. Gotta do my surgical cut again. Get this little bit out. There we go. That's where the mount goes. Yeah, that's pretty well packed. Pretty good. Yeah, we'll be doing an official review and hopefully have a video out next week sometime. So I'm going to test it with different bike weights, different types of bikes. I'm not sure this would be recommended for e-bikes because e-bikes are a lot heavier. Then you have to go that direction, right? So you have a pivot and ratcheting system. This is very similar to this here, actually, on the Parks clamp, and it looks like it'll do the blade style seat post, which I think you see the speed concept in the back. So yeah, it looks like there's one bolt you need to put in. It's right here, and this does the job. So, and looks like you release this portion. It's like a ratcheting, so you can manipulate the direction it's going to go. And then you have that. I like this clamp style personally. Is you can do round and also bladed or oval shaped seat posts. And depending how wide it gets, looks like you have a pretty good width on there. You can get a bladed seat post on there. So far, thumbs up. Not bad. This guy, it's like it has a, oh, yeah, there you go. So, then locks into place. That's interesting. That's actually probably a better design than the wedge system of the Parks because I'll have to play with it when a bike is in there. Because these do wear out inside and you have to use like grease and file it down and that kind of stuff. So Viver, there's a link below to one of them. I don't think this model is available. They gave me a link to show and it says not available yet on Amazon. Viver's basically sold pretty much all their stuff on Amazon, so there lies that. For under $100 though, not bad. Pretty stout. Yeah. All right. And it folds up, pretty compact. And you get it, I have stashed one. In one of our cars, they have like these little hidden things underneath. It's this SUV style. I've actually took one of the feedback sports toolkits. I have 3 of them for events, but I don't do events all the time. So I'm like, why am I just leaving these here? So I put one of those flush in there with one of my other stands and backup stands because I'm not going to use anything other than this. And therefore, if I go check out a bike or I'm driving and I see somebody messed up on the side of the road and need some help, I can be available to do that. Not that I do a lot of driving, but in any case, that case there. All right, let's see here. I'm going to check on the... Okay. 3 or 4 minutes. Just going to check your Tall drink of water. All right. Why, look, my bike is in the stand. All right. Okay. So yeah, you know, throw in the chat if you have like folding stands that you've used, or in the comments below on repair stands. I did a feature video, which was one of my interesting videos that actually kind of took off. I compared the Ultimate. Actually, it used to be called Ultimate. It's called Feedback now. And Feedback Sports have been doing repair stands for decades, and they rival up against Park Tool repair stands. So I had a couple of those and compared them. The Trek brand at the time was called Wrench Force. I used to have one of those, which were very similar. Some of the Wrench Force tools were actually made by Snap-on. If I can find one. But they were not like the super polished Snap-on stuff. I mean, it was kind of like, I don't know who made it, you know, for Snap-on, for Wrench Force. But the repair stands, I mean, the Parks are pretty decent. The Ultimate or Feedbacks are really good. They're really breaking into that race market with the kits and tools. But Park pretty much has the dominance of all the tools, but they are expensive. So there lies the thing. It's like, okay, well, you know, if you're only going to use like maybe 2-3 times a year, something like this, that's all you really need. You know, if you're using it on a daily basis, I started with a Feedback stand before I got the shop version. This is like the $1,000 one. And then nowadays with the lift and all that, so someday I'll get there. All right, let's see. Checking some, you guys are doing some chitter chatter. All right, so there's the bike. That's the featured tool. Repair stands. There's a whole bunch of different ones out there, that kind of thing. But you know, look at the weight restrictions on them. And the clamps are, like I just showed you, the clamps are something you really want to pay attention. So if you have like a bladed frame with a bladed seat post, like a tri-bike or aerodynamic, you want something that accommodates that. If you're just general over a meal, these do great. So, you know, you got to keep that in mind when you're looking for repair stands. And again, if you're only using it for a couple, you just need to get something up off the ground to work on it, not do heavy. But if you're going to start your own garage shop kind of thing, do invest into the little bit nicer ones from either Park. You don't have to do the industrial one right away until you have basically proved to yourself this is something you're going to want to do. Because these guys, even on the used market, I paid $800 for. I mean, they sell them individually with a base plate. You know, you look at the prices on the Amazon store. I listed a few of them, just not expecting anybody to buy one, but just to show and tell in that perspective. Yep. All right. So let's talk about, let's move and sit down. I'm going to have to sit down because I'm at the part of the cold. I need to sit down. So let me get situated here. It's going to be a little bit of earthquake for you. Hopefully my stream doesn't freeze like 1 year or not 1 year, like 2 weeks ago, and all that crazy bit. But yeah, so I had a video dropped last week, which wanted to talk about, you know, the state of the bike industry as in bike shop perspective. I picked on Specialized earlier. I'm going to be picking on Trek here soon. And when I say pick on, it's just observation. It's not that I'm dogging them in a particular. The thing is, what I'm doing now is like I'm not anybody's Kool-Aid. I mean, that's what's so the beauty of what I'm doing. It's like I'm not drinking anybody's Kool-Aid. I mean, I don't have to worry about my dealership being, you know, losing contracts or any of that nature. So there lies the freedom of being able to talk about that. And it's like, you know, talked about the middle class bike shops and that kind of ties into what we're talking about today because there's bike shops related. And, so I wanted to do, if you saw the video on Sunday about Pon Holdings and Pon Bikes and you wanted to do a live question, go ahead, throw it in the chat. But recap a little bit on the middle class bike shops. That's still a pretty good, strong, how I gauge the video doing well is they are getting a lot of comments, a lot of engagement. That's what that's what I want, right? That's what we all want. And to make sure, we're engaging with our audience and also building this community. So we're looking at a couple different things. Hey, the sun finally came out. Oh, nice and warm here. So when we're looking at the state of the industry, we're in a pickle. I was talking to John when he dropped off the parts, and it's interesting to see where we go from here. The bike shops, they're buckling down and telling their reps, no, we're not buying anything. We'll only do the stuff that we need. And we're only going to go, only going to do what we're going to do, and we're not going to listen to you too much, and only going to leverage you, and you're not going to leverage us to buy all your stuff that you can't move, which in case they end up selling direct to consumer and all that. So that's where you have the bike shops, independent bike shops in a pinch. Well, they're not so much a pinch because what's coming in the door now is service, and basically they just need consumable parts. Tires, chains, tubes, cables, housing, all that. So those manufacturers, those wholesalers are going to do fine with that, but if they're trying to pedal down a whole bunch of bikes that are overpriced that they can't move, that's going to be a different scenario. When you're looking at a company like Pon Holdings is a little unknown, big, freaking huge company. Been around for a long time. You can watch the video and see that. But what's interesting about Pon is that they have brands from, your Walmart brands, Schwinn and Monggose, which is unfortunate, the names have been turned into that, to high-end brands like Cervélo, Santa Cruz, GT, Cannondale. So they have some big names that are actually still being used like in Tour de France and races and race circuits and so forth. So you're looking at that huge thing. I'm sorry, there's a weird ticking over here, making sure I'm not blowing up. So when you're looking at all those variables with a company like Pon, also they're not just in cycling, they're also in automotive and various other other industries. So they're very diverse, right? So with that diversity, able to carry certain parts of the industry that may lagging to get through to the next, whatever, gets to see the end of the light or see the light at the end of the tunnel, such a scenario. So when you're looking at the Pon, and a lot of people didn't know, I didn't know Pon. I was like, who is this? And I stated in the video, I found out Pon Holdings came in and under Mike's Bikes, swooped in and bought some bikes underneath, bike shops underneath Trek that Trek wanted to buy, and they were Trek dealers, and Pon came in with a bigger number, and the owner was like, I don't care, I'm going to sell these guys. So those 4 or 5 locations came from Trek dealers. Boom, they're out, and then straight into Cannondale and Cervélo, and whatever the Pon does. And they have 18 stores now, if not more. I think they're in probably a better leveraging position in those stores than Trek is, for sure. Trek overbought, and they're shrinking some of their store footprint. Closing some of the locations. Specialized may be doing the same thing here soon if things don't get better for them. But the service portion of those bike shops is going to carry somewhat. Even with all those bike shops that Trek has, I think over 500 now, and if all of them are producing record numbers in service, it's still not going to carry the company through this hump. So it's going to be, service will help, but it's not the end all, unless that's all you do. There's a couple shops that chimed in on the middle class bike shop video, like, hey, we had our record year. We do service and used bikes. And that's what's selling. And for me, during Black Friday, I didn't sell any bikes. it was insane. Like the year before, I sold like 8 used bikes, and this year I haven't sold any. It's all been service. What I've been working on is what's been carrying me. But then again, I'm a smaller shop. I can do the adjustments, and my overhead is like really nothing compared to anyone else. So there lies the interesting quinkadink of the whole Pon realm. But yeah, if anybody wants to add any questions about Pon, if you have you heard about Pon Holdings, Pon Bike before, being a parent company of Cervélo? Or did you buy a Cervélo just thinking like, oh, it's just Cervélo? Because you'd have to be in the bike shop, ordering, going, I know the distributor. This is nothing really new though. I mean, let's just put it this way. Quality Bike Supply, QBP, they've been selling Salsa, Cervélo, Salsa, Soma, and another S brand. But they've been carrying those bike lines for years, and that's where you get those bikes, and that's the same kind of concept. They were a distributor, and that kind of deal. So it's very interesting how Pon can leverage, and I'm not saying they're not having their issues. They've closed down closed down a facility that was assembling or putting together or building, however you want to look at it or coin it and phrase it. Because when I think building, it's like you're getting the raw materials and you're drawing tubes and you're welding everything together. Then there's plants that are just basically assembly plants. All that stuff is made in Taiwan and China and it's shipped over, and you bring over the raw parts and you paint them and put it together. So it's kind of like assembly instead of building, manufacturing. So there's like different levels of Salsa and Surly and Soma. Those are the 3 from QBP. Thank you to Bicycle Shop. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking it was 3 of them. Or it was Soma still there? I thought, Soma, I could be wrong. I thought, it's been a while since I looked at a QBP catalog because I don't buy from them. And they won't sell to me because I'm a guy in the garage, which I don't really care. That's fine. That's all good. No Soma, okay. But in any case, so yeah, the manufacturing is going to be very, very interesting because I did mention like they did close down a manufacturing plant in Germany, but they had another one in Germany with an article I read that they're shifting everything over to. But are they? Then I had one person chime in this morning on that video. It's like, no, the parts are built in China and Taiwan, and they go to California and Colorado or in the United States. Then they're assembled here, and it's assembly. So. To be honest, there's 3 big parts of a bike: wheels, frame, fork, and componentry. Those are the big ticket items, right? And all the manufacturer, when Trek was building bikes in the United States, they were mainly just building the frames. That was it. Everything else is sourced out, put together in assembly. So here lies the big question. Yeah, it's one of those things where what are they going to do with the tariffs? I've been watching videos on it. I don't know if I'm going to do a whole topic on tariffs themselves affecting the bike industry, but some ways you can get out underneath of the tariff costs. If it's just the parts coming in, then you do the assembly here, and then it goes. So good example is Kent International. They sell a lot of bikes to Walmart and other places too, just as big as Pon, but in a different realm. They have a Univega as one of their brands, and they had a Univega assembly plant. I don't think they draw the tubes and weld it there. I think they just put the bike's frames together and then they box them up, kind of like that second stage of manufacturing. And I will definitely go in deep detail with John, ask him about that, because he's, John Bradley, he worked at Trek. He was a product manager, basically. He knows all the ins and outs. Now it's the 90s. It changed a little bit, but he has his finger on a pulse on all of it and insight. So those are some really good questions, like how are they going to work around all this? So if Pon was building Santa Cruz and Cervélos in the same manner as just the parts being shipped there, so basically the frame is welded together in China or Taiwan or wherever, and then the batch of frame pieces get sent to the assembly warehouse. Basically, they paint it and put it together. A lot of there's a couple of smaller companies here that do that too in Colorado. So Yeah. Sorry. So when you're, yeah, I mean, so two things that kind of go in hand in hand is, you got the small mom and pop shops, the middle class bike shops, and some of them are bigger, some of them are chains like Will and Sprocket and Landry's out east, and Bike Mart, and also Bingham Cyclery in Utah. They're still owned either by family or individually owned, and they may have multiple locations, but they still fill into that mom and pop middle class bike shop range. I mean, they do have, some of them are really higher end shops, locations. All depends on the market, of course. And they've been around for decades. So there lies, you got those. And you got the really, really, really small shops. I mean, just like me in a brick and mortar store like Blue Sky. They're in Greeley. There's the one guy, one man doing e-bike stuff, and that's it. And there's a couple other ones in Fort Collins and so forth. So the circumference is a huge umbrella. But I mean, all those little shops, it's almost like the smaller you are, the better it is to change directions and go different and try different things, and the failure rate is less. You're not hugely committed on too much inventory, too much product, too much of anything. You can do little micro adjustments. For me, for even a guy in the garage, I was just refurbishing bikes and selling bikes, road bikes. That was it. And I got really soft. Then I'm doing like any kind of bikes for the most part. Exclusions, of course, but things. And then it really got tight. Then I'm like, okay, I got to open up service and do full bore service. That worked well. And then for me, YouTube, using social media apprentices. All of a sudden, fast forward today, 5 years later, half my income is directly or indirectly coming from you guys. Either you saw me on YouTube, having me do a tune-up on your bike, or I'm getting the affiliate sale or the ab sale through YouTube. Granted, smaller numbers, I'm not making a living off of it, but it actually sustains what I need to bring to the household income. It's a win-win. Can it get better? Bigger? Yes, absolutely. There's only so many tune-ups I can do in a day. There's only so many repairs I can do in a day, in a month, and whatever. The bigger impact and so forth, where I see and where my business is going, yes, it's going to be leveraged more into the social media, brand, that kind of thing. But I'm still going to work on bikes. That's, I'm always going to be working on bikes. It just be a lower pace, and hopefully I can ride more. I just want to ride my bike more. That's all. And spend more time with my family. That's where it comes down to. Small bike shops. I did the knuckle grind with my parents' bike shop, Parker Bikes, back in the day. Pete, if you're watching, you owe me a shot. So, yeah, when you're looking at that, you put your heart, blood, soul, tears, everything for years in and years out, and you get almost nowhere. And this particular micro, if you take the overhead portion of it, I can actually get somewhere. But it's not the direction or the place I ever imagined I'd be. And there lies a lot of, you'll see some influencers per se. There's a couple that really have shined in the last year or two. Gogava is one. If you see him in his videos, he has a tariff video. It's very interesting about tariffs. He did a lot of research on it. I give the guy a lot of props on that. Opened his own shop. He's a pretty sharp cookie. I don't know why he's in the bike industry, but anyway, he loves bikes, and he's even within the last year seen his brick and mortar store go through a lot of twists and turns. So in that case, yeah, you can see he's leveraging YouTube and social media. Some just do the Instagram short videos, some do the TikTok, but good luck on TikTok, but that's about ready to be, I don't know where that's going to go. But you can't put all your eggs in one basket, which is really what it comes down to. I can't put I wish I could put everything into YouTube and live off of YouTube and travel abroad and whatever, but that's not going to ever happen. I'm still going to have the brick and mortar customer, not brick and mortar, but I have the shop and that part of it. So you have me, as you're watching me, thank you for watching. That's my success story. As of so far, sustained. My success is just surviving at this point. And that's what's going to be for the next 2 to 5 years. For all shops of all perspectives, from big to small, and industry itself. Then you have like the bike farmer, and some people don't like his personality, which is fine. Some people really dig it. It's crass. It's a grumpy mechanic that has a little shop in Wisconsin, and people like watching his stuff. His videos blow up all the time, and he is quadruple more popular somehow than I am, which is fine. I'm not jealous. Well, I'm a little jealous, but it's fine. It's great for the guy. He's doing good, and that kind of thing. So that is technically a small local shop leveraging something that we would never thought we would leverage to provide a supplement income to help keep us doing what we love doing. That's an interesting thing. So when you look at going back to Pon, they have 18 shops. When you look at Trek and Specialized, they have quite many more locations than Pon does, but they're going to need to be shrinking. Pon is probably going to be expanding. Reason being is those shops could use any of their 50 brands of bikes that they carry as a company and shuffle them until it works in any of those markets. There lies the problem with Trek and Specialized. The Trek is basically Trek stores, and it's all they carry is Trek. So, and Trek used to try to be all for everything, where they're going to have to shrink down and they're going to be no longer a niche type brand. It's like all brands, but they're going to have to shrink that down. Specialized, interesting enough, they have kept a lot of the names of the stores that they purchased. InCycle is one. I always draw a blank on the one in South Denver, but they had 5 locations. They're all Specialized owned, but they're not named Specialized. They're named something else. Thank you. I try my best of doing what I do. That's all I can ask myself, and I'm just really super happy that somebody doesn't mind watching me and listening to my stories and ramblings and what have you. But in any case, so what InCycle or Specialized is doing is they're using the names of the companies that they purchase and keeping the names for some. And if they're opening stores, they're just putting it under InCycle. So the InCycle, I believe, is one of the original purchases of the aggression of opening stores. Here's a little known fact that back in the day when I worked at Retail Toolkit, which is a software company, which is basically it was being ran and owned or developed by William Sprocket for his own 10 stores. Specialized had one location that they purchased back about 10 years. This is before Trek purchased bikes. This is where they're worried about eggshells in the industry on this. It was hush-hush. They didn't want nobody really know about this one location that Specialized owned. It was like a shop that was too big to fail in California. And when they went in, they had, whoever owned the shop before had hundreds of thousands of dollars of inventory that's 5 years old, still sitting in boxes, new, not opened or anything. It was like nuts. It was just a total train wreck of inventory. That's where lies our program. And then Specialized tried to basically make their own version, which they eventually, I think, did, of our retail program algorithm, and kind of basically they used us to figure out how they can make their own, basically. And they're probably using that in their actual retail stores now. Not sure, no facts, but I did have a couple calls with some random software dude at Specialized, and it was really awkward. Let's just put it that way. Any case, they had their teeth cut on stores that they own. Trek was the same. They had 2 of their own corporate stores in Madison, Wisconsin. So it's not like this was new, but what happened with Trek is if you don't mind me verbal diarrhea on this, is they bought a chain location in DC called Revolution Cycles, or Cyclery or something like that, and they were part of the Retail Toolkit companies that we were working with. helping with their inventory, and the guy didn't want to, he wanted to sell, he didn't have any families to hand the company off to or any of that, and Trek was like, you're too big to fail, we'll buy you. And they saw the profitability of it. And then, therefore, fast forward, that they bought a whole bunch of stores, including Lee's Cyclery that I worked at. And then those locations of Lee's Cyclery are now in Cycle because there's a whole drama of that. In any case, they've been doing this, and they've had some learnings, but they've had some pitfalls and catastrophic failures. And through the Trek having a hard time downsizing, resizing, whatever they want to say their size is, Specialized having layoffs and whatever they're going to, and everybody's dropping their pants on prices right now, trying to get rid of it, trying to sell anything to anyone. And then you have Pon, which they're in the same boat, not going to say that. But in their retail locations, though, this is the interesting bit, is they can open up locations other places and just put in specific brands. So they're more leveraged to grow faster out of this than the other two. Specialized, since they're using, just like Mike's Bikes, they're using InCycle. But I found on eBay the other day, InCycle account on eBay was selling a whole bunch of new Specialized product. So they're leveraging everything they can under the sun. So it's basically all rules don't apply anymore that they've been trying to force upon the independent bike dealers for decades. And I'll leave you with that note. For decades, they were telling the independent bike dealers like Parker Bikes and Lee Cyclery and anybody I worked for, is that you couldn't sell any of the new product online. You had to sell it in your stores. You couldn't ship it to anybody. You couldn't, they'd have people watch for stuff being sold on eBay, that you'd lose your dealer agreement if they found any of this out, and direct to consumer and all this stuff. Lo and behold, fast forward today, they're doing it themselves. Because they have to. The whole market has changed so much that they have to. And they have to do it in a way to make their whatever dealers are left happy-ish. And they're not making them happy, I guarantee you. They're not happy at all. Specialized bit a huge stink on it. Trek is trying to do, they went to direct to consumer last summer. They try to make it a little bit nicer for the dealers, but it's still not the greatest for sure by any means. In any case, all right. Yeah. So yeah, that's where I was born and raised. Well, I started in '89, so I lived through all the '90s in Parker Bikes. Different time then. We had multiple brands. There alludes to my experiences of working there, and what I see what's going to happen to our bike market is companies are going to keep falling and be absorbed and rebranded and changed. That's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. Some of these companies are just going to not hold out. The Trek and the Specialized and the Giant, maybe not so. But a lot of these other small brands, unfortunately, they're going to be rolling. Like Colorado Cyclists and Planet Cyclery, they got reskinned. Now they're owned by Cambria. Who knows if Cambria is going to even hold out? I mean, who knows? I mean, and the Pros Closet is going to try to come back and do reinstallment or rebirth of the Pros Closet, but we haven't seen any of that. Companies like Bicycle and Bikeless, they're going to be ones in the used realm, which I think is going to be the strongest market going into 2025, is the used, because everything is still expensive, and the used market prices have dropped so much that, heck, you can get a full carbon bike at $300. Then you spend another $300 on a tune-up and some parts, and sure shit, you got a brand new bike, and you're on a car less than $1,000, and then you're, I mean, it takes a little bit of research, and you can go a long ways and not have to spend a lot of money. From bike tools to parts to bikes to cleaners, also prices are going down. All that's going to do is hurt the big guys, and they're going to try to figure out something. It wouldn't take much for a company like Pon or International to make a bike in that sweet spot of $300 to $900 in all categories. And yes, they're not going to be making a lot of money off of them in units, but there lies that customer is new and they need all this stuff like gloves, helmets, all that other things that go with it. So there lies the profitability through that revenue. Because I guarantee you, a guy that walks in the bike shop that spends over $5,000 to $10,000 more on a bike is not going to buy anything else other than that bike because they have all this stuff already. They're already in. They may get something new here and there, but it's only going to be on sale. They're so savvy right now. So anyway, anyways, think, Patty, you giving me those compliments? Thank you, if you are. And if somebody else in the chat, well, absolutely. Thanks for chiming in. Oh, yeah, we're in some weird quinkydink. I'm actually surprising I feel this well going this long. This morning I was feeling pretty rough, but I'm sorry. I do apologize if I did cough in the mic. I'm trying my best not to. But in any case, anyway, yeah, we are. I think it's interesting because, like a year ago, yeah. Well, okay, let's back up. Height of COVID, there's a lot of us, and you can watch a lot of other channels, and they say the same thing. It's like they've been in the industry for a while, especially the guys and gals have been in the industry for a while, and they're like, "You're not height of COVID. I know it's going to come down. It's going to crash hard. It's going to be like a whole dead stop." Which so baffles me because I was thinking the same and saying the same thing before I even started the channel. I'm like, this is going to just get ugly because going through the 90s and the 2000s, we've had those up and downs, and that down is kind of a little rough, just a little rough. I knew this was going to be really rough, and I didn't really comprehend how bad it was going to get, but I could need to see it, and you're like, Specialized is dumping prices. They're doing it direct to consumers. Trek is finally just dumping prices, but for like a good 9 months, people were like, no, you're not gonna, they're not selling. They're not, maybe they had deeper purses, whatever, they have to pay the bills. And then it leaked that they owed Giant a whole shit ton of money. Then Giant somewhere leaked, because you never hear about Giant, they owed a whole bunch of their raw material people a whole bunch of money. So it was kind of like everybody was running out of money. Everybody owed some people. And then it's like all of a sudden Cambodia bikes are coming from Trek. I'm like, what did they do? Now they're buying from Cambodia to get those bikes to pay off Giant. Who knows? I mean, I'm just speculating completely here. But the thing is the whole crap show roll down is happening. Now I feel like in the last year, kind of seeing some light of how this is actually going to turn out. Not sure for sure on the big corporations, but I can tell you for a fact for the independent bike dealers, the little guys like me, a little bit bigger, and Gogava was afraid of bike shop, garage shops popping around him. He doesn't need to be afraid, because those garage shops, as well as bike shops, are going to be very niche, unless they have the exact same niche, but they're all going to have little niches. Like one's going to be a mountain guy, gal. One's going to just be a roadie guy, gal. Another person's just going to do e-bike repair. And we could all be on the same block and be fine. One's going to be tuned tri. There's so many different layers, like I mentioned at the beginning of this whole talk. Like there's so many layers of an onion of the cycling industry. You can pick one, and one's going to work better for another. I'd love to have a mountain bike guy across the street. Then they're going to like, hey, you can take it over to Bob across the street, and he'll fix your suspension. I don't want to touch that. That's just not my forte. That's not what I'm tooled up to do. That's it's like whatever. Either I hate it or like it or whatever. That doesn't matter. If you're not prepared to work on it, you're not prepared to work on it. So, that's where you have all these different shops, and they have all, they can be very small and micro. At the end of the day, that gives guess what? The customer the best experience possible, right? You come in, I work on your road bike. I know the road bike stuff inside and out. It rides like it never did before, better than new. And then you know your mechanic. You let him have time to do all the right things and catch all the things that a high volume fast shop is trying to do too fast and turn around. Where these, we could definitely provide a very valid service to the cycling community. So much so that I spent the last week, I had the director of the MS Society here, which does a huge charity ride. They have, thousands of riders that do this event. And my family's been affiliated with it for decades. She's newer to that organization, but it's like we had a 2.5-hour meeting, and it was one of those things where my knowledge and experiences of just being in the industry and how to redirect their needs to do these community rides, support rides, is kind of, she was jaw dropped, and I was jaw dropped that they weren't doing these things. Like, really? You stopped doing these, charity, like the training rides at the shops and all this stuff? And I'm like, yeah, we stopped doing that. And I'm like, why? So it was great. And then I'm talking to the Colorado avid cyclist guy, and I threw his name in there, and they contacted. So it's basically a community. We're trying to help people get on bikes and ride and do fun things and find their people and find their type of riding. That's where it all comes down to, right? So leveraging just the support ride for Bike MS is in this case, or it could be for anything, the diabetes ride or the cancer ride. I mean, I'm sure there's some ride near you that you can be involved and a part of. But what that community of riders, for the most part, is about 60 to 80% of new riders. Just either borrowed a bike or just bought one, or whatever the case, are new to the actual event, or newer, or just recreational. Just, they're not racing, they're recreational riders, which is the 80 to 90% of the market. So if you're a bike shop and you're leveraging, you're gonna have to leverage a community of some sort. I mean, I'm a small garage shop. I'm not doing group rides out of my garage, that kind of thing. Well, number one, I don't have the insurance to do that, or the manpower or the time bandwidth, but I can do events like this. So that's my community push, or my community commitment, is like in the MS ride and various other rides. I've expanded. I've gone out of just doing the MS. I'm doing a couple other ones, which I'm happy to do. And I do these events, and it moves me. I mean, it literally it reinsures that this is what I want to do. This is what I get out of life. The most impactful thing. Like I feel like I'm improving people's lives. I'm being an advocate of people getting out there and riding their bike and enjoying it. I'm giving them a warm hug, happy place that doesn't feel like you're being threatened to buy stuff. Just like it's a community. And Cycle and Pour is a shop I stopped in Vegas a couple weeks ago. Same feeling. They're a road shop. If you're in Vegas, it's on the southwest side they do 2 group rides. One's aggressive ride, one's a no drop ride, once a week. Nice guys and gals. They had a nice coffee shop. The vibe was awesome. I mean, it was just great. And it was just like one of those things that you're doing it right. And I talked to them about, like, you need to bring in more used bikes. That's the only thing that's going to sell from here on out for at least for a while. And and then you have your, you still sell. I'm not saying you're going to sell some new bikes, but they're going to be a lot less. And therefore it lies into a lot of the service and community. That's what it comes down to. So, in any case, full circle. Middle class bike shops, we're coming back. It gives opportunity. If you're even thinking about opening a shop, you're insane. But if you wanted to know that it's like seeing like 2 or 3 shops go under on YouTube, they're talking about their experience, and basically the vendors killed them. I hate to say that, but basically the vendors killed them. So you have to be, with experience of 30 plus years, even if I had vendors, I would tell them, even when I was doing good, I'm only going to buy from you what I know I'm going to sell. Stop trying to peddle stuff, and stop coming into my store every 2 weeks. I'll see you 2 times a year. at a bike show when the new crap comes out, and maybe just a cup of coffee later on. Other than that, I don't want you in my store. Everything else I can find out through your website and whatever. I don't need you to come in and tell me like doing this. And knowing in the 90s, if I know now with the reps that are just coming in every week, every other week, how much time suck that took away from us doing our day-to-day, we may have been still in business. Could have been. And listening to these individuals losing their shops was hard to watch. But what was the underlining tone on both of them? The vendors killed them. They're not there to teach you or help you drive your business. They're here to sell you something, and if you can't pay your bills, you're on your own. And that's where the small shops are they turn and burn them. They're still doing it today, which is, I got to get off my box because, I will totally lose my shit. Start throwing things. Anyway, I hope you got some good insights. The YouTubers that are bike shop people that are YouTube, to support them one way to support us without paying anything, is watch our stuff, comments, share, makes you to make this work. So Go Gava, the Bikeless Path, or Powdery Paste guy, he's a good one. The Bike Farmer. Well, we all just watch our stuff. Comment, share, like the stuff we don't like, don't watch the stuff we don't, whatever, it's fine. But that's the instant help and support. The second thing is a lot of us have Amazon affiliate stores. Go through our comments, you'll find those. The funny thing about Amazon is you can look at our stuff and then you go shop for your toilet paper and your cereal and all the other things. For the first 24 hours, that cookie trail, if you know anything about software, that cookie trail keeps open. We get commission off all the other stuff. So if you're gonna do all your Christmas shopping, go down below, go through my portal first. That'd be awesome. I'll probably be canned because I said that. But in any case, that's how you support your channels on here on YouTube. And another thing is, like, a lot of us will have our own merch shelf. Mine's a spread shop. What's really cool about that and the Amazon affiliate and a lot of affiliates is once we set it up, it doesn't take any more time from us because you're going directly through those companies, right? So we get a little commission, but we get the check at the end of the day. But the thing is it's not taking away time for working on bikes and ordering parts and all the other stuff. It's a whole thing. So when you're looking at those things, that really is, that's a way of supporting the channel without really needing to. I mean, if you're already on Amazon buying stuff, you just go through one of our things, and then it doesn't, it gets us a little kick. I mean, it's not much, people. It's not much, but every little bit helps, right? And then some of us have merch like T-shirts and hats and that kind of thing. And that's done from a separate company called Spread Shop. And they do all the handling of the transaction layer and all that and stuff. But it gets our branding out there, which number one helps. Number two, we get a commission off of stuff that's sold. And then again, it's a no lift for us. It's a zero lift. So that helps support those channels. So help those channels as well as mine. That's easy way of doing it, that kind of thing. Oh man, I feel like I'm selling myself. Anyway, I mean, I'm going to bring in more products and stuff to review. I'm getting big enough to people who are reaching out. So hopefully you find that very interesting. I'm going to be mindful. I'm not going to be like the slave to whatever junk that they send me. I'm very specific. I'm like, well, like they want, a car rack. I mean, I can talk about it, but what am I going to do with a car rack? It's going to be things that I would be more interested and you would be more interested in my niche of watching me do my thing. So thank you so much. And the thing is, like, you guys are talking about the community and content, and there's still some good bike shops out there. There's a lot of people who are like, you may not have a good one in your neighborhood anymore. That's unfortunate. But there's a few of us that I do watch periodically when I have time. They're passionate. They're not here to sell you the high-end carbon wheels or carbon fork. I'm going to try to sell you on a good used carbon bike that's under $500, and you're going to have just as fun and a heavier wallet riding that bike. And you don't have to break the bank. And that's where the 80% of the market lived before all this. And it's just true to say that's where it's going to continue to go from here, because like the Kent International, the Medum, where I did that feature on the Gordano bike, gravel bike, it's like $250. It's not bad for $250. I mean, could it be better? Yes. Is it horrible? No. If it put together right, it'll be just fine. And that could be just the bike for just a recreational rider. It will be just fine. One of the other channels was talking like, well, department store bikes, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I'm going to say, department store bikes, if department store companies like Walmart and Target really had a service department putting those bikes together right, a lot of us would have been out of business a long time ago. Some of the bikes, yeah, they are cheaper, a little bit heavier, not as better quality and all that, blah, 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 blah. But if they're done and put together right, they last just as long. They do just as well. I've worked on a lot. I've worked on a lot of them. I've done my time. And if you get them earlier in the gate before they got ran down too long, not being adjusted correctly, they hold up just fine. But so there's the weirdness of it all. It's just experience, right? So in any case, that's where I am. But I mean, it wouldn't take much for some of these companies to dip their prices down. Look like at Poseidon Bikes, for example. Everything they sell, gravel bike and a couple mountain bikes, is under $1,000. They seem to be doing okay. And somehow they keep those price points too low. And the comments of the people who have ridden and have those bikes are not too bad. Oh, by the way, I wanted to tell you, I got that daily deal of the day. I just threw up there because I don't know what to call it. Maybe it's a weekly deal. But got an email from, I've been keeping an eye on GT. Like I saw one of the gravel bikes have been on sale. Well, the rebranded Planet Cyclery, which is owned by Cambria Cyclery, are a GT Cervélo. They're a Pon. They're not owned by Pon, but they're a Pon. They sell the bikes through Pon, right? They had a GT. They had the grade model, which is the grade comp, which is the next model up, and they had a $250 off of a $1,000 or more bike. Okay, the grade comp is a little bit over, so it puts that bike on sale with the coupon for $850 with aluminum frame, carbon fork, through axles with GRX Shimano componentry for $850. Closest bike you see that in Trek and Specialized is close to $2,000. Maybe they're on sale. Maybe I haven't checked those, but that's what they were retail. So there's going to be these deals that are going to pop up like, oh my God, I wish I had money. I was like, because I was looking at just the grade model from GT, and it had micro shift on it, maybe the sword stuff, which is, I've heard a buddy of mine's got it. He says it actually works pretty good. And now it's actually on sale for $840. And now you can get the bike above it for $850. Like $10 more, and you got the, yeah. That's in my community posts, so look at my channel, you find my community posts. I did that yesterday, so in any case, if you're interested in that, take a look. Who knows? I mean, you're going to be seeing stuff like that happen. Like, I don't know if Cambria has too many of the GTs. Probably that's why they're just dumping all their stuff and paying a big pretty penny for Planet Cyclery and Colorado Cyclist name to reskin that. It's probably costing a little bit going into the last season. It's probably not the best time for them right now. And anybody right now, it's just anything I can do to generate any kind of cash flow, just to get through the next couple months and hope to God the season kicks off and the things are not as weird. But there's going to be some serious change, and we do not know exactly how that's going to affect all the big guys, which is going to be a weird trickle-down effect to bike shops. But if we're really focused on service and used market, whatever craziness that goes on with the Trek Specialized Giant and Pon and all them, hopefully won't affect us too much. That's all I got to say. Put your eggs where you know, do what you do best, and build your communities. The customers are still there. People are still riding their bikes. They're just still doing the charity rides and event rides and races and all that. They're still going to be there. So find out what you can do to help those markets out, and they'll take care of you. That's all I got to say. Thank you for hanging out with me in the garage. I jibber-jabbered enough. Cool bike. I'll have a separate video featured on that guy, as well as a bike stand or repair stand. And please put stuff down below. If you have any experience with cross bikes, repair stands, thoughts and feelings about the topics, I'm always open for suggestions. If you own a shop, if things are working for you, tell us what's working for you. I'd love to hear it. I'm going to try to feature in the next couple months a couple local shops and go talk to them, see how they're getting through this, how they're navigating, how they're building their communities, what brands they carry, how the brands are taking care of them, all those things. I'm going to try to reach out to a couple of them. Blue Sky, I want to go out. If you're watching this, I want to go out and talk to you. He's out in Greeley. And there's a couple other shops I really want to kind of feature. Also, with that community build within the charity, I want to feature a few of the shops that actually do commit to the MS bike, to see if they've done it before, if they've been doing it, or is it new, what entices them to help them to do it. Is it just a passion thing, or is this something we've always done? Those are kinds of things I want to really kind of sink my teeth into to bring to you as a community. And Scott, thank you so much. Appreciate the super, what's that called? A super chat? Yeah, it must be a super chat. I'm still so new. I'm such a mechanic. But Scott, thank you so much for helping my channel. And other ways, you don't have to give money, but I appreciate it. Just watch my stuff. Share it, like it. That's what helps all of us YouTube channel. And right now, that's what's helping a lot of. I know the YouTube channel is saving the bike farmer right now, and Go Guava and other channels that just finally got monetized and doing that. So support them by just watching their stuff. That's it. It's off season for a lot of you, so might as well catch up on your bike content, right? Well, thanks guys for hanging out with me in the garage. I hope you have a wonderful day. If you see any other deals or anything like that, just throw them down in the comments. The chat will eventually, I think, pop up at some point, but people will read the comments on this. I'm trying to keep these within 1 to 2 hours. And until next time, till next Tuesday, have a wonderful day. If it's nice in your neck of the woods, please go for a ride. And again, and it makes this channel, and I much appreciate it, because this has become a saving grace mentally for me, as well as I just love doing what I do. So here we are. You take care. Until next time, we'll see you next Tuesday.